David, thanks so much for joining us today on the podcast. It's good to see you again, my friend. It's been a while, and I look forward to this conversation. For our audience sake, why don't you start out by introducing yourself and what you do for Siemens?
So my name's David Haboud. I've been with Siemens close, running up on a year now. Um, I focus on interacting with the audience and creating a bigger community in the SMB space, focusing on topics that uh, help people do their job better and just kind of make it easier to understand the all of the products available and how it can help them in their daily life.
Well, you and I share that interest and passion, and we've known each other in the EDA space for many years, and we've had many conversations sort of behind the scenes, kind of wondering on where the industry is going, how to empower engineers to do their jobs better. Which is why I called you and I wanted to have you on the show because I think you have a lot of insight, not just from Siemens, but I think across the industry. So, um, I've been noticing, David, that there's this growing gap between um, design tools, the EDA space, as it relates to, your typical enterprise level tools, going all the way down the spectrum to free open source tools like KiCad. And I've been seeing a lot of kind of saber rattling on LinkedIn and a lot of frustrated engineers actually because this gap between an individual designer or a small to medium sized business engineer, what they need versus the full power and scope of these enterprise tools. And they're frustrated. They're frustrated about flexibility, the cost. And so there's all this going on. And that's what I want to talk to you about today. So let's start with diagnosing the problem. Why do you think in your estimation, this gap is growing and why we're sort of seeing this online unrest with design engineers, especially those that are one-off engineers that own their own design firm or a small to medium business that doesn't need all the firepower of big tools like Expedition.
Yeah. Yeah, I think one of the biggest points there is cost of ownership, right? Everyone focuses on the immediate cost that is happening at purchase, but it's important to think about what you're building in the long term. We wanted to make solutions that are scalable from an individual all the way to a global enterprise, right? We have been operating mostly in the enterprise space for several decades, right? But with the release of Xpedition Standard and Pads Pro Essentials, they're all built on the Xpedition technology stack. So you are able to go from an individual, uh, starting off like on a collegiate level with a tool like Pads Pro Essentials, and it is using the same data and same infrastructure all the way through to the Expedition Enterprise toolset. So you are able to build a skill set that grows with you across your career, right? You don't just start with a tool, master it, build out custom workflows and everything, and then okay, you move to another organization and you have to start over. You are able to build both tool skill equity and just overall process equity. So what that means is that you are lowering the overall cost of ownership of everything because you are able to reuse the methodologies across your organization. And when you if not everyone changes organizations, but if you do go to another organization, you are able to leverage that same information and same type of process and how you work. So it is going to enable people to build out their skill set much earlier, right? We are working on a lot of programs to focus on that education segment.
Mhm.
I'm sure. I'm not sure if Steph Chavez has been on the podcast, uh, but
Not in a while, but
yeah.
we should have him back,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, he's working on a pilot program. I won't talk too much about it until, I'll leave that for him, but, it's super exciting to be able to see, um, new young individuals that have 0 experience, right? And they're building out a
Yeah,
skill set that they're going to be able to use for the rest of their lives. And that's the
right.
important thing about this space, that it's been traditionally a trade-based, uh, skill set that we've had kind of a hard time passing that knowledge on. So tools like Xpedition, are incorporating AI to be able to process the way that the more seasoned individuals are working, and gives you predictive commands for the next thing to do in your process, right? And you're able to take that information and help onboard a new individual in your organization. So you can take the
Interesting.
skill set of someone with 4 decades of experience, and see how they do their process, right?
Mm,
And the tool learns from that, right? It's machine learning. We often think of AI as what is the current hype of LLMs, which is super important, and with that, uh, I think Siemens is able to leverage a level of design intent to train AI like no one else can,
for
because
sure, because all those seasoned experts, we talked about the difficulty of passing on that tribal knowledge from people like Steph Chavez, which, by the way, I worked with Steph Chavez selling him circuit boards 100 years ago. And he was a power user of Expedition. And I was so excited to see him join your team because he brings all that, all those hard won lessons um, to the organization, and that AI could learn from that caliber of designer to help upskill young engineers, that's amazing. We didn't talk about this a lot before, but that is a very exciting point. Now, back to this tool set. So, let's talk a little bit about, you mentioned, like, I've known about pads for years. And so the choices at Siemens in particular, and kind of across the industry, is sort of a sort of low end entry level tool, or these big, powerful enterprise tools like Expedition. But that gap seems to be growing for a variety of reasons. So tell us what Siemens was thinking when you built out these newer versions of this tool, which is Pads Pro and Expedition Standard. So you're filling that middle spot, if I hear you right, which is also an exciting development, because that's where the engineers I'm seeing are super frustrated.
Mhm, mhm.
Is how they can right size the tool with without it costing an arm and a leg, and being strong armed into these cloud based whatever it is. They just feel strong armed, and a lot of them are throwing up their hands, are like, forget this, I'm going to KiCad. And in my mind I'm like, yeah, KiCad at some point is gonna be acquired and funded, because this is just the circle of life in the EDA world, right? Um, so tell us about PADS Pro and
Pro, yeah.
Expedition Standard, and who that's
Mhm,
for, and
yeah.
why, as an organization, Siemens saw that that was important.
So the biggest thing to note here is that we took the architecture created for Expedition Enterprise and we started from the ground up with that as a base, so they are all operating on the same architecture. So you are able to create a design in pads pro essentials, then open it in standard, open it in enterprise, and continue that design process. So you are building that tool equity, as I mentioned earlier. As your skill sets grow and as your process grow, we are offering out of the box capabilities that don't require cloud storage to enable it, right? Because we have an integrated data model all the way from, we like to say, chip to city at Siemens, right? We are able to operate on the same design data without that translation or migration of that data. You're able to define it and have it across different domains to enable continuous verification and validation throughout the entire design process, which enables you to work from the $1,000 tool of Pads Pro Essentials all the way to every tool that we have available, right? With the same core data model. And that is just
Right.
it's amazing, right? Like
You don't
we
have to jump from KiCad to another tool, and like you said, lose the tool equity, but also your learning curve. You don't have to start over,
no,
which
same
is a
environment.
huge and $1,000, really? That's what Pads Pro is? And
Yeah.
where do you draw the lines between what features are available and which? And so I guess I wanna jam a little bit about, if you can, talk about the affordability first, and then I'm gonna ask you some other questions about sort of that out of the box connected workflow thing, which is an exciting thing and an irritating thing for engineers.
So from Pads Pro, Essentials is focusing on the individual contributor. They just have their design process, so it's basic PCB design, right? Um, when you move on into Xpedition Standard, that is to scale up into a team based uh,
Okay,
system, right? So that's
okay,
when you start getting additional tools to help across different design phases, besides just the core schematic and layout aspect of things. You're starting to look at DFM. We have, in order to improve the accessibility and affordability of everything, there is a shared token pool. So you buy tokens, and that is shared with everyone in your organization, right?
okay,
And when you need an advanced functionality, like we offer pre and post layout signal integrity simulation that's powered
okay,
by hyperlinks technology, right? And you pull the tokens from that shared token pool. And when you're done with all of that simulation, that again, you're doing continuously throughout the design process, without that data translation or migration, you give back the tokens and someone else can use them within your team. So it allows people to go outside of their basic comfort zone. You don't have to buy like the full tool right out of the
I
gate,
see.
but if you want to, if you have higher needs, you can do that. And again, same data set. So you're able to continue the process, everything you've been working on, and continue on, integrate with hyperlinks, with Valor products, and we have the more basic offering, like I said, signal integrity analysis, and a tool called PCB Flow that does actionable DFM analysis. So it takes that, again, powered by Valor, um, those component footprints, and make sure that everything is manufacturable before you hand it off right at the end.
Well, from all the interviews I do and the interesting visibility I get across the industry, this idea of collaboration is huge for more complex products specifically, but all products really in general. But some of those tools, um, are really expensive, especially to onboard for an entire team. So it sounds like by using these tokens, like say you had a small design team, you're designing all year, then you can just use some of those tokens on one or two designs and
Mhm.
allocate it
Yeah,
without having to have it buy the whole
yeah,
600-pound gorilla,
yeah,
and pay for that year over year.
and the key is that they're not you don't use them up, right? You
Mhm,
have the pool, so if there's, some tool that requires more tokens, at any time you can just get more for the year, right? And add to as your team grows, right? Add to that base and use
mhm.
it as necessary, and then return it over uh, for everyone else to be able to continue. But you brought up an interesting point on that collaboration aspect. I think one of the biggest differences is that because of our integrated data model, we are able to offer that type of collaboration without requiring everything to be in the cloud. You can
Hmm,
everything can be connected if you don't want to deal with the infrastructure part of things. But of course, there's people. I started in the aerospace industry. Um, so I
yeah,
understand sometimes there's, like, a room within a room within a room. You need 3 layers of access to get somewhere, and it's
right.
stored, right, somewhere. So if you need that level of control, you can start building things out, uh, o on
Which is
uh
huge. I hear a lot of engineers complaining about, again, we mentioned earlier on, feeling strong-armed or forced into the cloud. And like you said, defense applications are one, but IP, protecting IP in this day and age is huge. There's so much going on with AI, geopolitics, and all of that, and nothing in the cloud feels super secure. And again, a lot of companies that offer collaborative tools are forcing engineers, or they might allow whatever their parts library or some part to be on premise, but they still put the design collaboration up in the
Yeah,
cloud, which I understand, but I'm just saying what I'm hearing,
yeah, and
is it makes them mad.
it's about enabling you to focus on what you care about, right?
Yeah,
I'm a cloud enthusiast. I love putting things there to make things a little bit easier. Not having to
right.
manage all of that is amazing to
Mhm.
me.
Yeah,
But I also understand this is a new concept, and if you've been doing this for a long time and you have a lot of IP already somewhere.
yeah,
The idea of moving things around can be scary. There's just a lot of unknowns for people,
yeah,
and we want to give everyone the flexibility to w- have the tools adapt to them and
yeah,
not the
what a
other way around.
concept.
Like, apparently you can do this, so that's what we focus on, right? Having tools that adapt to you and not the other way around. Uh, and
Well,
it's
I
amazing.
love that. I love that again, adapting to the engineer, not the other way around. And I hear engineers complaining about it, making decisions, switching tools. Like it really is a moment. And I've been sort of secretly behind the scenes going, okay, which of the EDA vendors are going to see this gap and try to fill it? And as far as I know, what you're doing is the closest thing out there to doing and serving engineers in this way by filling that in between space, making it affordable and flexible, so good on you guys. I'm always rooting for the engineers. So this to me sounds like something that they will enjoy, having these options. So The other thing people are talking a lot about these days, David, is, the ability to shift left, which means do all your simulation, your verification, your validation well before you build a physical product. And again, especially with complex applications, the cost, your time to market gets eaten up if you have to do 3 spins of a prototype. The costs are ungodly. So, how do you guys and, you guys have sort of been leaning into that shift left
Mhm.
with tools like Valor for a very long time. So, how does that sort of fit into this window of availability for from an individual to a small to medium-sized design team? How does that shift left, work in that place for you guys?
It's kind of bringing this idea that has been in the more enterprise-centric side of things of the digital twin. With the data model that we have and being able to operate across disciplines and domains with the
Mhm.
same design definition, y- you're able to continuously simulate, verify, and validate things all the way throughout the process. And it's really cool to see, like, as I'm going higher into the enterprise side of things and seeing the requirements come in, and everything just become the the concept of a digital twin is real. Like, it is pervasive throughout all of this,
Yeah.
and not having to translate anything,
Yeah.
like the data itself.
From one tool to the next tool to the
Mhm,
next tool,
mhm.
you're saying, yeah.
So there's no loss of design intent ever. You're continuously talking about the same design object, right? And
Right.
that's across different fields. That's different types of engineers,
Mhm.
even non-engineers, right? Management, being able to communicate on a specific component, a comment about availability, right? Building in supply chain resilience because I'm able to connect that component with a digital thread all the way to a part I hold in my hand, right?
Right.
And it is I, no other tool can do that.
Well, the concern has been, and I'm getting a little bit of insider baseball here, but across my long career is a lot of these tools, and Siemens included, they have grown the abilities through acquisition, but Siemens, like Kuiper was built by Siemens, right? And built with, I believe, some industry experts to help guide what was important, and surely there's been there's been acquisitions along the flow there, but it sounds like you're saying is the data continuity now has been baked in,
Oh,
where I
yeah.
think what people hate doing that, export in this file and import in that thing, and then go back here and here, and what crumbs get lost
Yeah.
along the way.
Is that the right
Um,
revision of the thing I manually generated and it took forever? No, this is just I go to the next tool, and this is a Siemens level initiative, right? This is one tech company. The data model is further and further integrating and going higher and higher, which is where
right,
that that statement of chip to city, right? Because Siemens
right.
is I'm
Siemens
focusing
is
on.
huge, and they're going all the way across the manufacturing,
Mhm.
the whatever. They go further across that scope, I think, than I think I'm right, tell me if I'm right. They go further along the true end to end than maybe any, company is.
Yeah, and it enables this level of AI that is trained with best practices across everything, right? The industrial AI effort is we're all able to leverage it in the company, right? All
Right.
of that expertise coming
Yeah.
down. so that your the AI isn't just generating intent, it understands the intent that you're going with, right? It understands the language of engineering and manufacturing because we've spent years training it with our best practices, right? So
Well,
as
not just your best practices. From the design standpoint, it's learning from people who have been engineers for 40 years, right? And it's that sort of, training. It's not learning from the internet. It's not learning from YouTube, thank God, because, again, I have so much, compassion for engineers that are being asked to do harder and harder work with a messier landscape and just add LLMs to it, and it's
yeah.
like and YouTube. What could go wrong? And I love that there's sort of this closed loop that your AI, if I'm hearing you right, is closed loop, and so it's learning actual real world success, and passing that downwardly through your data and your tools to help engineers upskill. I mean, that's a game changer.
Yeah. And that expertise just continuously,
Right.
being able to pass that on
Yeah,
without the like learning curve of me passing it, right? We're able to educate the system so that it can now help the next generation and they're learning from the base, right? They're being empowered
right.
from
Right.
from the get-go. And
Right.
we have the solution from Pads Pro Essentials all the way up, eh, just to keep going, right? You can start as an
Right.
individual, grow as a small team, and then grow as an organization as much as you need to
That's
have
so
tools
cool.
that grow.
So, you've talked a lot about the differentiators, which is obviously the data, the flexibility, kind of right sizing the tool for the person where they are in their career as a designer, but also where they are in regards to team collaboration, complexity, like you put it all in the recipe, which is very cool. Now, David, you were talking about component selection, which is all over the place right now, all good stuff. Um, but I was able to come to Microchip Masters this year and cover the announcement of Microchip and Siemens working together on a tool called PartQuest Design Enablement. Why don't you talk about that? Just let's talk about that for a moment because to me that's another big differentiator in your product mix.
Yeah, so all of the PartQuest functionality is included with the access to the Xpedition tools, including from Pads Pro onward, right? So with that, you are able to get all of the compliance information powered by Supply Frame, which is Siemens organization now. You are able to get models for over 100 million components, right? Verified models that you can just literally drag and drop it. So you have that supply chain information from the get go, right? As you are researching components, you are able to take a look at them and even with if you're in the PartQuest tool, uh, you are able to open up another tool called PartQuest Explore, and that has simulation models for a lot of these components. So you are able to do a base level simulation before you even select the component, right? Just like general proof of concept.
Yeah.
We always talk about that, like back of the napkin, right? Paper napkin sketch,
Mhm.
right? So that's kind of a realm that we're experimenting with different integrations with other tools. And that project that you mentioned, I'll be doing a webinar on that in January, to cover that process for people that were not able to attend, the event, right? And it's all about how you can make better decisions during the design process so that you don't get sideswiped at the end of everything.
Yeah.
Uh, when you're doing your schematic, a lot of people will just, okay, that's a component that works. They throw it in their design. They get all the way through. They have the footprints and stuff. The design is done. You can't get that component, right? So the digital thread aspect.
Or you didn't simulate it, and once it's in the system, you're like, "Oh, shoot. This won't work because I didn't see that thing over there," or whatever. So, to me, that's a big part too. And again, the power supply frame is just massive.
Mhm.
So the number of components are in there, but I like the simulation part personally.
It's very cool.
Um, and then also, I don't fully understand it, so I'm glad you're doing a webinar on it because I kind of want to see it in action. But I know when I was doing the interview with your team, um, the VP from Microchip was talking about that you can create and simulate like a little reference design, and then you can generate a little bit of the schematic and drag it right into Pads Pro or whatever tool you're using. And again, there's that continuity, um, the seamless continuity where you're not jumping around in a bunch of different tools. So, anyways, I thought that was very cool. Um,
One more thing with that on PartQuest is,
okay,
we just released, AI, datasheet reader. So while you're searching for components, you can ask it questions, and it will pull the source information, give you an answer, but since you have the source there, you can validate it, right?
you can
Uh,
verify it. Yeah,
everything that we talk about with AI, we wanna make sure it's not this fluff of it's real, right? We want it to be actionable, and you need to be able to hold it accountable because you're going to be held accountable for that decision, right?
right.
So you have a source, and even if there was a hallucination in what it believed, because you have the source, you can right there verify
Go look
everything.
at the source and verify and make
Yeah.
sure it is not
Hmm.
hallucinating.
Hmm.
Yeah, which is, geez, like a part of all of our lives right now, but I love that it gives you the source. So it's looking at a 200-page data sheet and you ask it XYZ, you can also go, "Okay, show me that on page
What?
206," or
Yeah.
whatever it
And
is,
what
right?
when it answers, it shows you automatically, right? Side
Oh,
by side.
okay.
So it's like chat, and it gives you the chat answer,
Okay.
and it's like, "By
Okay.
the way," and it pulls up the data sheet right next to it, and it's like, "This is the answer from this page," right? This was my interpretation of everything, right? So it's not, again, not only understanding, uh it's understanding your design intent when you're doing these things and giving you the appropriate answer with that source.
Well, all this sounds honestly too good to be true. So let's talk about maybe challenges ahead that you might see, and then let's just wrap it up because I know I've kept you for a long time, but I've really enjoyed this conversation and learning about what you guys are doing.
I think, some of the biggest challenges ahead, are, improving the community aspect, how we all talk with each other, since we have focused on, enterprise level conversations, on the SMB side. I'm focusing on improving communication with everyone, with more webinars, with contests, more ways that we can engage with each other because the community is important. And just helping build that out in an open way is is what I'm most excited about, right? That's why I
Yeah,
was brought on board, and that's what, we're going to be tackling for moving
the
forward.
foreseeable future,
Mhm.
right? I do believe in the power of that, and I do.
Yes, yes.
And I think there's so much gold to be mined there when engineers talk together. Well, congratulations and thanks so much for
Thank you.
sharing all this with me. I know that you shared some links below, that I'm going to put below, and we're going to get updates on that. But for our audience, just know that I'll be grabbing some links from David. If you want to go learn more, check it out, do a webinar, please feel free to do so. Also, I think I have some links where I might have I'll have to check, but I may have a 30-day demo. Um,
Yes, yeah,
I do, that's still good? Okay.
yeah,
So I'll share
yeah.
that below too, so you can go check it out and don't listen to all us. You can go check it out yourself and verify yourself. David, thank you again. I've really
Thank you.
appreciated this conversation. I'm excited about, what you're doing at Siemens, and hopefully we'll have you back before long to give us an update.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
For our audience, make sure you go check out the show notes below. I'll get as many juicy links as I can get for you. Thanks for joining us this week on the Ecosystem Podcast. We'll see you next week. Until then, remember to always stay connected to the ecosystem.